So you can see I've got some relatively large photos that I have gathered together. I'm going to use for my project. So the first thing is I want to take the one that I'm going to use for my background and I'm going to drop it on top of the icon. All right, now that Photoshop has opened up the picture, I'm going to go and get another one that I want to use. So I think I'm going to take the one of me, and instead of dropping it on the icon to open it separately, I'm going to drag it into the middle. So I've added that picture on top, and I'm going to stretch that out. Now you notice that my legs run off the bottom of the picture, so I'm going to have to put that somewhere near the bottom so that my legs are not showing like an empty line. I can either double click inside the picture or click the check mark. I'm going to click the check mark, and there we go. Now, over here on the side, this is object selection. It is the top one here. If you see quick selection or magic wand, it's underneath. It's object selection. And when I hover over myself, you see the pink line that shows up, and I can just click there, and that is going to select me from the background. And I can check it if I want to using select and mask, right? My background, the rest of it is somewhat transparent. I can use my magnifying glass to zoom in and check the edges, and it looks like everything is okay. So I'm going to say okay, and then down here at the bottom, I'm going to add my layer mask. So I just click, and there that is. I've got my layer mask. Now I'm going to come back in here, and let's grab some other ones. So I'm going to bring the moon in, check mark, and then I'm going to come over here, click again, and layer mask. But now this time what I'd like to do is I would like to make the moon a little bit transparent. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to go to layer, layer style, and blending option. Blending option. And now here, I'll move it over so we can see the moon and the selection here. We see that blending mode is on normal. Opacity is all the way up, which means that you can't see through it. So I'm going to push it down a bit so that we can see through it some. Now, I am going to move this away from over top of me, so it's okay right now. I'm going to say okay. And I want to make this bigger, and I want the thing to quit. I want my layer mask to quit showing up every time I drift over it. So I'm going to click on my move tool. And here it's bringing up my selection tool. I'm just going to stretch this to make it bigger, right? Because I want it to be a bit larger. And once again, click the check mark. And it's still showing me selection tool, so I can click right here and turn that off. And now, this is something you want to notice here. Do you see in this stack over here? These are the layers. Here's the background. And then the next ones, the background is locked, but these aren't. And I'm going to drag the moon underneath. So now it appears that the moon is behind me. And we're still on that layer. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to say layer style. And then this time I want to add an outer glow. And I think I might make that a yellow glow. And okay. And then I'm going to come up to this and set it on normal. And I'm going to make it a little more, let's see, let's make the spread a little bit bigger, the size a lot bigger. But now let's kind of mess with that. So we'll bring the opacity down and we'll bring up what's called noise. And noise makes it, you can see it over here, it makes it look sort of speckled, right? And I can work on that spread stuff a little bit and keep the size nice and big. All right, and that's good. So I'm going to say okay. And let's bring up the picture so I can see everything. So I've got the moon back there. It's transparent. It's got a glow. And now I'm going to bring in a picture of my dog. Okay. And I'm going to push him up to the top. There we go. And selection tool. And this time I'll just kind of drag over him because there's a lot of stuff around there and I just want to get just him. And I think it looks that way. So let's see here. I think that looks pretty good. So I'll say, okay, layer mask. And now I'm going to move him down. Oops, it looks like we missed part of him there. So there's a couple of options here. I could go back into the selection, but I want you to notice, do you see over here, the layer mask, white shows up and black is hidden. And we're clicked on the mask, and I'm going to come over here to my paintbrush, and I want to use the black and white, so I'm going to click on black and white, and there's white. Right? And white is what shows. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to paint in, let's make that a little bit bigger. I'm just going to go ahead and paint in his leg, right? Okay, and it looks like I've gotten some of the floor, which I didn't need. So switch this to black, because black hides, right? And I'm just going to paint right on that section with black, and that adds to the mask. There we go. Now, he's really big for that spot, so we're going to say Edit, Free Transform, and I'm going to shrink him a bit, right? And that looks good. I'm going to set him right here and check mark, but I'd like to have two. So I'm going to go to my move tool up here and then press the Option key on my keyboard. Now, do you see the arrow on his chest? Watch what happens when I press the Option key. See how there's two? Not pressing, pressing Option, there's two. So now all I have to do is click and drag, and I've copied him. There we go. And now I'm going to come in here and we're going to do one more. I'm going to add this flame in here. And this is one that I shot of a picture of in my fireplace early on. So let's, once again, object selection, drag across, and let's see if we get that correct. Very nice. So layer mask. Let's go Edit, Free Transform, shrink that way down. Right, there we go. Double click on that so that it just gets the selection off. And then once again, Option and drag. There we go. And I think I will call it quits for that. Now, one last thing. Let me just show you one more thing here. Down at the bottom, here's our background. If I come down here and I click, you can see the dogs look like they're floating a little bit, right? I'm going to come up here and, nope, not this one. I'm going to go to this here and go to my lasso tool. And I'm going to draw a little circle kind of right under their feet. Now remember, they're on a different layer, so it's really okay. And I'm going to add my Shift key so I can draw a second one. And now I'm going to come up and I'm going to say Image, Adjustment, Brightness, Contrast. And I'm going to push the brightness down. And it's only going to get darker right in that slot. And I'm not going to go too much with it, but I'm just going to give them a little bit maybe of shadow where they'd be sitting. And I'm going to go here and say deselect. And so now I've got a little bit of shadow underneath them. I mean, I could probably get that a little bit better, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I think that'll be good. So now I've got everything in here that I want. I could add some other glows, I could do some other things, but I think that's good for now. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to go File, Export, Export As, and I want this to be a JPEG so that I could use it anywhere and turn it in Google Classroom. I'm going to save it as a JPEG. It would probably come up as something else. We say JPEG, export, and I'm going to name it. So this is Demo 1, and I want it to go to my desktop. So I say Save, and there it is on my desktop, a JPEG with all the parts in it. Now, just in case I ever want to come back and mess with this some more, I'm going to save it as a Photoshop document. So I say File, Save, and I just say Demo 1 again, but this time you see it says PSD, Photoshop document, and you can see here, Format, Photoshop. This will save it with all the layers in it. So save, and yes, it wants to access, okay. And then we say okay. And now here is this Photoshop document. And so I'm going to close this. And now when I click on the Photoshop document, it automatically opens up in Photoshop with all of the layers intact, right? Whereas the JPEG does not need Photoshop to open up again.